Anat Bosak, 26 years old. And basically this apartment was the apartment that the family of my grandfather lived in. And what happened here is a group of artists who arrived from Jerusalem.
HaMiffal is an artist collective which started in 2011 in different form. It started with a collective called Empty House. The first thing the collective did was to get into abandoned houses in Jerusalem, create art project, what we call like a temporary cultural center, which is the same we're doing here in Sambation. One of the things we did like here is to try to do it, from Israel in a way, having the background about the house, researching the history of the place.
When we come here, the historical and very evident thing is we're coming to Kazimierz, which used to be a Jewish neighborhood or Jewish place, and it was absent, and they are absent now. They have come back, partly as far as I know, but not the majority of the Jewish community that was here.
For me, this place is symbolize something intimate, like my grandfather dealing with his life and how he take his life back after the war. And to come here and to see suddenly a life and people working here and a friend of mine and kids, I think it symbolizes something. It's not for forever, but it is a thing.
It's a house. It's someone's apartment. You still feel someone is living here. And I think if we were like offered quite cube, space like a gallery or museum, I don't think it would fit because we are so used to work in these historical buildings that have some presence. For example, you have the wood ovens here. You have the floor. You have some of the walls with some remains of the life that were here.
So we come here and we relate to that. The MiFal, our artistic venture there, is in an Arab building that the family that built it and that lived in it, they left it. They fled, and when Israel was in 1948, as far as I see it, they are absent there. And I feel that we as Jewish, as Israelis, we switched roles because here we identify with the ones that are absent. There in the MiFal, we are the ones who made them absent.
The brother of my grandfather was a poet and a historian, and he was writing a story about the Wisla, about how it became like one river. But because he was a poet and a historian, so he was telling the story about the Wisla in a really poetic way. They say the water was raised up and then the river goes there and then everything is changed, and it was where is the street of Ditla right now. A lot of people that critique him, like, are you a storyteller or like a poet, Are you invent stuff or are you making the history? So for me, this thing about what was the history and what is how you're telling a story is always combined together. Like in French, you say l'histoire and history. Story and a history is the same thing. So how are you telling your own kind of story? So this thing with the Sambation was this fairy tale kind of a place, story.
Sambation is the legendary river. What it is exactly on its location, it's not clear. What we know about it from the different version, it protected 10 lost tribes of Israel. Some say it was in the seventh day, in Saturday, in Shabbat. It was active only in Shabbat. The energy changed, so it's very diverse. Nobody knows where it is. It's like something that's missing. And also there is this part of the Wisla that is missing. It used to be like the limits or the borders of of old Kazimierz until it was dry out. So, you know, this river that dried, or this river that you don't know where it is, it's a bit like, you know, the Jewish presence here, that you don't exactly know how it was.
The old stories of absence, and I think absence is something that is quite universal now, because people are absent from their natural place all over the world now and I guess all through history. People are being absent and other people take their place. People don't learn from history. That's what I feel, that we keep doing it. And it's like, maybe it's our role to keep taking other people's places. So I hope that someone will come here and will feel the void of a person.
One of the main challenges we have was how not to relate to the history of, of Krakow. Its presence in every single day in Israel. You know, what's happened in World War II and the Holocaust. That we had questions how we can find our own personal connection. So some artists, use this imaginary land. For example, in Arad-Yairi and Kobi, Vogman and Harada's work, they combine different language from fictional world in the end. It's not real, but what's happening there, it's in their installation, in their video, it is real. Michal, Cohen and Michal Chevion decided to do this, referring to Zion from Poland, just to have this fantasy of these mountains, very colorful, and having these sand bottles like a souvenir from the Holy Land and the Promised Land, and the name of the work is Promised Land, which means it's a missed opportunity, or something is not as it should be, maybe, and it's really inspired by this landscape that were in the end of 19th century of Zion and the Holy Land, which are not real, which are the European view of Israel today. To get this image inside an apartment is absurd in a way, because this is a landscape and you put it in a room. And this absurd also happened in Itamar Hammerman's work, where you see old furniture, kind of an office or a place that somebody really big, much more than life size, like double than life size. Michal's Harada's work, the same space is all about the relationship between people. First of all, it's all fictional. All the figures there are not as real. They're based on the human body and anatomy. They're really gentle, or something is going out or connected to the body, or the body is not so complete.
Some people did ask, are we ruining it? They're a bit shocked in the beginning that I do it, but then they like to join. And I think that through the action, after a while, they are a bit like, are you sure? It feels to me that, are you sure that you want us to do it? And some were saying, it feels so good to empty. And it does satisfy. It is it's a nice action to do. It's a nice thing to do. But then the other that joined later, they asked, is that what you're doing, ruining the sculpture? But they did join after asking this question. So it's very interesting, what happens to people when they see that everybody is doing something and they join in, although they're not sure that it's okay to do it.
Shmulik, Twig and Chevion, what they did was not to relate specifically to the history, but to the pattern of that history remained, the historical remains in this building. For example, what inspired them was one photo of the floor, and how the floor in that building is not new, and it's not the original one, it's just made of a combination of different tiles from different places.
It's a bit crooked because we wanted something more organic and less machine fabricated. Like this place, which is, even though it's like straight and organized, it has very organic character and very intimate in our perspective. And people from the building do sit here. So we built a bench based on these patterns. And then the second work we did, we took the elements, also other elements from the building that we liked, and we kind of created a language of a creature of metal that has the some of the aesthetic decorative elements from the building, like the tiles, like the painted glass, and we combine them to something that grows vertically, like a plant that starts to crawl over the building. It starts from the ground and then splits over around the corner, and it's kind of like developing the patterns of the building organically, like a plant or a climber plant. This section is more for things that will be here for longer time than the exhibition. We wanted to leave something that will also be useful for the tenants here, for the neighbors, and for the management.
Some people just pass by every day and say something. Some were just, were sitting in the courtyard with us. Some it seems like ignoring, but it's all right, and we are like guests here.
Nobody knows what's happened. Generation is changed, stuff is changed. We all lived about our own history and story, but basically it's hard to really be in the same position and hold it. So for us it's almost like a fairy tale, something beyond. It's something far, something that we mostly imagine. We imagine what was in that house. I imagine how they lived here. I imagine where they go, how he was traveling, like my grandfather between the street, where he goes to pray and stuff. I imagine it. I don't really know. So how much is the imagination and the artistic side, and how much is the story?